Today is the third straight day that the president is focusing on health care reform. Ron Brownstein, the Atlantic Media political director, joins us now. Ron, he's really making a huge push. Does he have his own people on board, his own Democrats on board, or does he first have to get consensus among the Democrats before he even reaches out to Republicans?
Well, one of the things that's happening, Andrea, is that consensus is beginning to form among the key interest groups as well. I mean, one of the most striking things that happened this week was that the president on Monday had at the White House a half a dozen major interest groups, including the Insurance Industry Trade Association, the pharmaceutical industry, the AMA, as well as the Service Employees International Union. They agreed to seek $2 trillion in savings over the next decade in health care costs. Now, that critics pointed out correctly that they did not put out all the specifics of how they would get there, but that missed the larger point, which is that many of the groups that were at the forefront of opposing Bill Clinton sent a very clear signal on health care reform. They are walking down the road with President Obama. They have not reached final consensus with him on the bill and what the specifics would be, or much less congressional Democrats. But it does suggest the opportunity for consensus is increasing and broadening. And by the way, we saw the same thing on energy significantly last night with Henry Waxman putting out a new version of his climate change bill, again, from the outside in.
I was going to ask you about that because the president, when he met with them on health care today, congratulated Henry Waxman on the agreement that he has forged on energy. What kind of compromises did he reach on the so-called cap and trade on carbon emissions to reach that kind of agreement? We're hearing that there will be a bill by Thursday.
The new version of the energy legislation is significant both in the narrow terms of how it advances the prospects of action on this specific issue, but also because it signifies something of the same thing that we saw on health care on Monday. On both fronts, you see key elements of the business community essentially signaling that they would rather make a deal with the dominant Democrats than try to align with Republicans simply opposing the entire enterprise. What Waxman, who has been a very skilled legislator for a very long time, what he did was he reached a compromise that will commit the nation to substantial reductions, 17% in carbon emissions by 2020, also increase our use of alternative and renewable energy substantially by 2020, but defer the attempt to raise a significant amount of revenue through this process. And what's striking is that not only did a number of the conservative Democrats indicate support for this, but there were very positive comments from the Trade Association for the Utility Industry, the Edison Electric Institute. And again, as on health care, you see the potential of the White House being able to build some alliances with business groups that normally have aligned with Republicans.
You know, the conventional wisdom that we've been discussing, you and I and others, for a long time has been that energy was going to be harder than healthcare, especially given the economic climate. There's more of incentive to do something about healthcare than energy, which costs potentially, whereas healthcare actually saves money. But you're beginning to see that this administration may have a legislative strategy that actually is going to work.
Well, it's still harder on energy than healthcare for the reason that you say, but probably much brighter on energy than it was a week or a month ago. I've talked to people even in the industry this morning who said that now really for the first time they could imagine something that could get through the Senate. The House Energy and Commerce Committee is very diverse ideologically and regionally. A bill that could pass there does have the potential for broader support, particularly with the industry along. That leaves the Republicans kind of isolated if the industry stays with the administration.